The next scene takes us to Jin's apartment. The doorbell rings, and Jin quickly opens the door, only to find his senior, Major Kang, standing there. Later, they sit down in the living room at the dining table, and Jin's grandpa is thrilled to finally meet Major Kang in person after only talking on the phone before. Major Kang apologizes for not coming sooner to say hello. He explains that he returned to Korea with Jin, but wanted to give him some time to reconnect with his family first. Grandpa finds it surprising that Major was here in Korea all along, and states that he was eager to thank him in person. He remarks on how shocked he was to learn about all the things Major Kang had done for Jin. Earlier, the old man had thought Kang was just an embassy employee, not the very person who brought Jin home. Major Kang happily explains that they wouldn't have survived without Jin's help either. Well, it's actually true, and Kang reflects on how Jin essentially brought them back from hell, and he couldn't be more grateful about it. On the other hand, Grandpa nods in respect and says that Jin might never have made it back home if it weren't for Major Kang. He admits it's a bit late, but he thanks Kang again for everything he's done. Major Kang starts to sweat and looks a bit anxious, quickly waving off the thanks and saying there's no need for it. Nevertheless, Grandpa is curious and asks how a military officer ended up meeting Jin. Major Kang feels confused initially, as he is not sure what to say, but soon collects himself and explains that Jin was their guide when they were deployed overseas. He got them out of a tough spot, and Kang says they definitely wouldn't have made it out alive without Jin's help. Grandpa then invites Major Kang to stay for lunch, noting that it's almost noon. Major Kang happily agrees, and as he munches on some fruit, he turns to the little girl and asks if she's Jin's sister. The girl gets a bit frantic but quickly confirms with a yes, and Kang gives her a warm smile and tells her that being Jin's younger sister makes her like a younger sister to him as well. So he jokingly adds that now she's got two stylish bros to hang out with. How cool is that? The little girl feels a bit awkward, but musters up a polite response. After all, she's just a 17-year-old trying her best to be courteous, while a 36-year-old man is trying a little too hard to be hip. As noon arrives, the table is loaded with food, all thanks to Grandpa's high-paying job as a security guard. Major Kang dives into the food with enthusiasm, eating so fast that Grandpa feels bewildered and tells him there's no need to rush. Major Kang apologizes and explains that he's just too excited because he can't remember the last time he had a nice home-cooked meal like this. Grandpa then asks if Kang's mother is no longer with him. Kang replies that she's alive but not very good at cooking. He and his father prefer to eat out instead, which spares them the awkwardness of pretending to enjoy her food. Kang gets a bit emotional and adds that the mess hall was the best part of being in the military, and he knows that sounds a bit tragic. Both Grandpa and the girl give an awkward smile, while Jin quietly continues eating his food, being the good guy he is. In the next scene, Jin and Major Kang are hanging out outside. Kang expresses his happiness at seeing Jin and mentions that the other boys also fondly remember him. Jin's mind flashes back to all the pleasant memories of his fellow juniors being kind to him, and a genuine smile spreads across his face. He then asks his senior what brings him here all of a sudden. Kang explains that he was out on business and thought he'd stop by to see his junior since he had a few days off after finishing his assignment. He's really glad to see that Grandpa and Jin's little sister seem so nice. Jin smiles back to hear this, and Major Kang beams back at him with the same energy. As the senior stands up to leave, Jin asks if he's heading out already. Kang nods, saying it's already a bit late. Major Kang further states that he would love nothing more than to sit and catch up, but he has to go meet his fiancée. This news takes Jin by surprise, and he asks if his senior has gotten engaged already. Kang confirms this, and Jin is left staring, unsure how to respond. Seeing Jin's flat reaction, Kang gets a bit agitated and annoyingly asks if Jin is jealous of his senior finally finding someone. Jin quickly denies it, while Kang explains that it's a bit of an old-fashioned arrangement since their parents set them up. He admits he's kind of glad about it, especially since he's always too busy with assignments to date much. As Kang waves goodbye, he tells Jin to take care of himself. Just as he's about to leave, Kang suddenly stops and calls out to Jin. Our boy quickly responds to the senior's call, and Kang cryptically asks if he has found the answers he was looking for. To understand what Kang is referring to, the scene flashes back to a time when Jin asked his senior about what family is all about. At that moment, Kang found the question really hard to answer and remained silent. Back in the present, Jin confirms that he still doesn't fully understand what family is all about, but he's starting to get a sense of it. Kang is pleased to hear this and gives Jin a heartfelt goodbye. We then return to the SW Corp, where GA apologizes to her visitor for calling him at the last minute, explaining that she didn't have enough time to see him elsewhere. Well, to everyone's surprise, the visitor appears to be Major Kang himself, and he quickly reassures her that there's no problem at all. In fact, he's the one who called her out of the blue and is just glad she could spare some time for him. As she takes her seat, she comments that she's heard Major Kang has been dispatched overseas a lot lately, so it must be quite busy for him. The man scratches his head and modestly says he's sure he's not as busy as she is, as he's just scrambling around trying to be useful. She tells him not to be so modest, knowing well how tight his schedule is. Kang grins sheepishly in response, while she thinks to herself that she never imagined she'd end up with a military man, and they wouldn't have even met if their parents hadn't arranged it. She then wonders how many times they've seen each other, and Kang responds that it's exactly 14 times. She then points out that this much time is just far too little given the fact that they had been engaged for over a year. She then remembers another think, and she states that she has a favor to ask. The man quickly perks up and tells her to just say the words. That is when she slides across the profile of our boy, and when he looks at the document, she points out that it's about this boy in the picture, and she wants him to look into his records. Of course, Kang doesn't need to look into anything since he already knows everything about Jin, but he remains silent about it. She then mentions that this boy is Yona's class fellow, and that they've discovered Jin's records are fake. She's been trying to investigate it herself, but the authorities won't let her, so she thought it might be better to leave it in Kang's hands. Kang, however, apologizes and makes it clear that he won't beat around the bush, and he can't help her with this. Jie's eyes widen in surprise, and she remains silent for a moment. Then, she turns her head away, a bit annoyed, and tells him that if he doesn't want to tell her anything, he doesn't need to get all dramatic about it. The poor guy trembles with anxiety and nervousness, as he surely doesn't want to upset her. A few days later, Jin receives a phone call informing him that Major Kang and his men, who were on a mission, have now gone missing. The scene flashes to Major Kang and his soldiers, carefully treading their way with guns pointed. But then, we also see the enemy soldiers in the woods somewhere. One of the enemy soldiers reports that Kang and his team have been driven into the target zone. The boss flashes a big grin to hear this pleasant news, and he is looking forward to hunting them down.